Hi, I'm Ariya, and you are listening to my podcast, All Things Acting with Ariya, a place where I talk to creatives about this wonderful, crazy, and painful career we call acting. If you are not an actor, please do stay tuned because though this podcast is called All Things Acting, we will also discuss the general torturous but rewarding life as a creative. Hello and welcome back to my podcast. Today's guest is a writer and producer who is also a South Asian creative highlighting social, cultural and environmental issues in her work. I am very, very excited to welcome Suman to my podcast. Welcome, Suman.
Hi, Ariya. Lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming on. So, I've just given you a really, really brief introduction there. For my listeners and viewers on YouTube back home, can you give us a little bit more information about who you are?
Yeah, absolutely nailed it. Writer and producer. A lot of people call me director. Although I do direct, it's not my main field at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, writer producer, I write my own content and I produce my own films, whether it be theatre plays or short films. And I'm currently moving into feature films. I've come from a journalism and documentary background. That's how I started, and I have my independent film production company set in Leeds, which is really exciting. That started, I believe, a couple of years back now. So I'm also starting to expand as a business as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I make films about social, cultural, and environment concerns. Most of the subject matters in my films are quite universal, so we do have a broader appeal in terms of our audiences. And the production company was just set so produce content that explores,
Mm-hmm.
ask questions that concern us all, and again, they will be relevant to the cultural, social, or environment concerns. Because I feel, as an individual, that these are the three key areas that people care about. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that we um, it identifies us, it affects our life, political affairs, whether it be concerns about the environment or cultural concerns about who we are, and any social matters. So, yeah, that's me.
Thank you for sharing that. So, I want to come back to you talking a little bit more about sort of the social and cultural um, concerns that you highlight. One of them being the fact that you are South Asian, and a lot of the actors that you do work with are also South Asian. And I think it's really important to speak about the fact that you're a woman as well in this industry. Because there aren't that many of us, especially behind the camera as well. I want to talk a little bit more about your journey into filmmaking and how your ethnicity and maybe religion and background might have come into that.
You're absolutely right, Aria. Social identities can overlap, and they do overlap. So, being a South Asian, being Muslim, being a woman, you can also consider them as barriers into the industry. But to be honest, it is challenging, but I wouldn't consider them as barriers. I think there's a gap in the market. And that's why I feel there's a cultural responsibility for me trying to incorporate the South Asian themes in my films, and it's very fulfilling. I do think there's so much more to be done. And yes, coming from a South Asian background, I grew up not seeing any South Asian women behind the camera. So for me, it was really difficult to
Mhm.
explain to my family why I wanted to do this because I didn't have examples to give.
Mhm.
But I'm really hoping to start a trend here, and I'm welcoming women from South Asian background to explore this industry because it could be for you. It is a career option. Yes, be very sort of considerate of the amount of work that's going to involve. Do your homework, do your research, but it is definitely an industry which I cannot imagine my life without. So I do enjoy it. It's it's very responsible career, but at the same time, again, it's very rewarding. It's not for everybody, but if it's for any South Asian people listening out there, please do check it out. Um, but yeah, I mean, where do I start from? It is, it all starts from sort of explaining to your parents what you want to do.
Hmm.
And at that point, even you're not very clear of what it exactly will involve because you've not had an experience. You don't have I didn't have any networks in the film industry, so I had to start from scratch. And it was just a process of trial and error, which at times can feel very risky because it's the fear of unknown. You don't know what you're signing up to most of the times. Most of the contracts look really different. The work environment is absolutely different. Um, it's not your normal 9 to 5 job. You do work unsociable hours. Um, and there's lots of how to explain this. So there's lots of fine lines. So when you look at a contract, there's all these hidden like terms and conditions, and that's how I often felt like. Um, but I guess you just have to, if you're passionate about something, if you're dedicated, and if you want a career that is meaningful, if you want to influence people, and create amazing stories. And if you're very fascinated with films in general, yeah, this could be for you.
Oh, and I want to highlight on the fact that you spoke about your parents are quite a big part of this. And I had Ahmed on the show not long ago, which is really interesting because the both of us are going to be working with you soon. And one thing that he also mentioned was having that difficult conversation with your family. For a lot of people, they don't quite understand it. It's because, I mean, to be honest, it's not normal. The way that, us as a South Asian community, we have to run everything by our parents and almost feel like we need their permission to choose our way of life. How did that conversation go for you? And how are they now, sort of, with the fact that you have been successful and you are, constantly creating new work?
It was very difficult. I think I did listen to Ahmed's podcast. Mine was different.
Yeah.
Mine was difficult. I think being a woman played a factor in that, and it came down to them not understanding what it was like. It was really exhausting trying to just convince them constantly and say this is the course I want to do. But yeah, I'll do business on the side. But I'll do this course on the side just so that I've got a backup.
Yeah.
Um, and there came a point where I thought to myself, I actually have to show them rather than tell them or ask
Mhm.
them. So I went out there and did a few projects and showed this all my work. So they are more comfortable with it at this moment. Would they have liked me to go down a different? Yes, even now.
Yeah.
So when if we do happen to have a conversation about my work, it's very difficult for me to have a two-way conversation because I'm talking about things they don't understand. So when I'm talking about producing, they have no idea what I do. And sometimes I'm here looking at hotel prices or looking at bookings or contracts, and for them, it's just like, are you even working? So for a lot of parents out there that don't understand the work that's required. There's so many different key areas that we focus on at one time. So when they see me working, they don't think that's working. They just think it's some
Mhm.
research or typing. For them, working is wearing a suit and going out there into the office or being a
Yeah.
doctor. That's a sort of main career path. And I feel like that's where I had to go, and they were upset, but I'm sure that they are proud. It's that thing with South Asian parents; they don't tell you if
Yeah.
they're proud or not. You only get told if you've done something wrong.
Mhm.
That's how. That's what my parents are like. If they don't say anything, that means it's okay. It's good. Um, and if I get a phone call, that means I've done something wrong. So far so good. Not had a complaint,
Mhm.
but I feel like I have I've things to prove to myself more than that's how I see it. Yes, family is a big part of yourself, but if you can look in the mirror and say, what I'm doing is something I'm proud of, this is true to my morals, and I'm going to go ahead with this because it's something that I really want to do. And yeah, that's the approach. So if I can look at myself in the mirror and, if there's a project that I want to take on, I'll be like, can I do this? Is this for me? Um, yeah, and your answers are within you usually.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's so inspirational and it's so needed because I think what we need more is South Asian women like yourself willing to talk about this and offer advice to other South Asian women who maybe feel like they don't have a way into talking about and wanting to live a life that they feel would make them happy. And the only way I think to make change is to start to normalize the fact that women have a voice and we have a choice of how we want to live our lives and what we want to do, what we might want to study, or whether we want to be an actor or a housewife. Like, I think there needs to be more encouragement for women to openly talk about matters like this. So I really appreciate the fact that you did just share that because it's not always easy to talk about your families. And I agree, like they don't always tell us that they're proud. I mean, my mom's the same, always saying, when are you going to be on Netflix, Ariya? But when she sees like a little commercial I've done or hears one of the podcasts, I know she's proud and she's like, well, she's doing something and she's not giving up, and that's it. It's the not giving up, because the moment you do, you know that you might have just lost out on an opportunity that would have changed your life.
I think you have to empathize to your parents, be in their shoes, and try to understand what it's like. That most parents are generally very concerned. They want financial security for their children. They want safety for their daughters, which is completely understandable. And back then, when I was a teenager, I did not understand all that. So my approach was either start crying or be very emotional and or be a bit aggressive about it. I did not know how to manage my emotions or my parents' expectations as such.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like growing up, and I'm better educated, I've had great mentors in the industry. That's really helped me with my career path. Um, and having a conversation with your parents about anything, South Asian parents, is scary itself, asking for something. So a lot of women out there, I am going to be honest with you, it's something that's going to come out as a shock to them
Mhm.
if you haven't told them. You're probably in your 20s, but it's so important to have that conversation. Be empathetic. So ask them, why is it that they have a problem, or um, what would they like you to do instead? And I think it's a relationship at the end of the day. You have to, at some point, compromise. So you have to be a bit sensitive that they might have some expectations from you, but then be realistic if you can, adhere to that or you can't. And again, explain the why, because they they don't know why you want to be an actor. What does it mean to you? What if you want an actor? Would you be happy, and why wouldn't you be happy? And don't just say you enjoy acting. I mean, that's just very lame. Kind of a reason to give, because we enjoy a lot of things in life that we probably shouldn't be doing. It could be anything from a career to a hobby, etc. So most parents are generally just concerned, and if you can assure them, if you can perhaps give them a glimpse into a day in life for actors,
Mm.
um, or if you are going to an audition or if you're doing a short film, take some pictures and come back and share them with your parents. Get them, make them feel like they're involved. So say that the only way I could have convinced my parents is going out and doing that
Mhm.
job. And at first it was all secretive, and now it's all public. But again, I've not been told off, so that means it's fine. The moment when I get told off is when I've done something wrong. But I still, the problem I had was it wasn't after a point my family, it was the extended family that
Mhm.
will go and say, oh, someone's on the news, but they won't say why she's in the news for. So, and your parents like, were you on the news? I was like, yeah, I did a film. Oh, okay, that's fine. So they won't explain what it is that they saw.
Yeah.
Well, she was on the news and there was three other guys with her. Don't say, don't word it like this. So that can make things worse. But I mean, I enjoy it.
And that's the most important thing. You need to do what you enjoy. And I think at the end of the day, your parents, they do love you and they want you to be happy. And, you know, if they see it's making you happy, and like you said, you're going out there and you're doing it, if they see you doing it, then I think their opinions start to change. So I want to talk a little bit more about you doing things. Lately, I mean, we're still in a lockdown, but you have managed to somehow film a film during lockdown. And not just that, but you've had a go at acting yourself as well. Can you talk a little bit about this film? What's it called? Where can people find it? What was it about?
So it all started with an idea. We went into the first lockdown, and I, just like so many people, were absolutely gobsmacked. My mum kept telling me that we're going to go into lockdown. I'm like, you're always worrying and you're
Yeah.
always overthinking things, and this is never going to happen. And it's all fake news. And then we actually went into lockdown, and I think, like everybody else, my world was just like shaking because I had so many plans for that year. Me and my co-producers were thinking of launching a film festival. We
Mhm.
were, I was going to film my debut feature, and there were a few other projects very exciting that I was going to be a part of. So I just felt like my career is going to go to the next level. And then there was lockdown.
Yeah.
So I think drawing upon the anxieties and the emotions, I one day had a very crazy idea. I said, I'm not going to let lockdown stop my creativity. I want to stay productive. So I wrote a script for a self shoot genre film. Now, if people out there listening, a self shoot film is a film that you make without a cast or a crew member. So you do all the camera work, all the lighting work, production design. Usually people have that approach for documentaries. So when you go out there and you want to catch something on the go, as it is very realistically, you will just point and shoot and record the sounds. That's like a self shoot project. But doing a genre film, which involves characters, which involves a lot of drama, makeup, props, that is something that I don't think has been done before. So to do that in lockdown was a crazy idea. And it started with a script, a story. So next thing, home turns into a film set. I approach Ahmed for a supporting character, and he recorded his scenes at home, and they were sent across digitally. Then I send that to my editor, get put together. So the storyline of the film is a girl moves into a new area. She moves away from hometown, leaving behind which we as an audience believe that it's a dark past. She's made some mistakes in her life and she wants a fresh start. So she moves into this new apartment, thinking, right, I'm gonna do really well. I'm gonna be sober, and I'm going to live a normal life because she, according to her, life was crazy. And then she settles, as she's about to settle in, the country goes into a lockdown and she starts experiencing supernatural activities at home.
Ah,
So she
interesting.
thinks, okay, I need to get out of here. But we're locked down and she's not safe. And we constantly hear on the news, stay at home, stay safe. And there's her thinking, this is not safe. I need to get out here. So she calls her friend Adam and says, Adam, I need help. And Adam, being Adam, the person he is, very jolly, doesn't take things seriously, or poke fun at her, as best friends usually do. And she starts to tell her story, and then we go into a flashback in the scenes. And he isn't convinced, sort of thinking about her mental health struggles. So that's where the conflict comes in. So she has to convince her friend that, believe me,
Ah,
help me here, and he's not taking her seriously. So that's it. And there's a very interesting twist at the end, which will blow people's mind. Well, I hope so. We worked really hard on the ending, how it all unfolds, and so far the reviews that I've had are um, very interesting, and people have had different interpretations, which is so interesting to see. But yeah, that's the film.
Nice. So, when will it be out, and where can they view it?
So we're currently going through final quality checks. We will be after that going through some marketing and critical sort of reviews. So we'll be sent out for professional reviews and then festivals. Lots
Exciting.
of festivals have a special COVID-19 category, so we'll be submitted
Nice.
to that. So as soon as we have our festival dates, we will launch the premiere day as well. And the trailer will be out. I'm really hoping in 4 to 6 weeks' time.
Oh, it's so exciting. And I will make sure that I definitely share it here on this podcast platform so you can all find it when it's released. So I want to come back to talking about you acting. Do you think getting a chance to act has given you sort of a different insight into acting and maybe a different empathy towards like your actors as well? I'm sure that it maybe helps you on the filmmaking side.
It has. I am more empathetic
Hmm.
in terms of the spotlight that is on the actor while they're in the moment. I've always been. I'd like to feel like I've always been
Yeah.
quite sensitive to my actors. Um, Acting as well as directing and wearing all the other hats was very challenging.
Hmm.
It was not as technically challenging as it was sort of creatively challenging. It was completely out my comfort zone, to be honest, but I feel like I am gonna push this.
Hmm.
Um, and if I want to achieve great results, I have to sort of step out the comfort zone and do things out of the box. So that's what I kept telling myself. And talking about being out of your comfort zone, I had to reshoot the film about 3 or 4 times, the
Oh,
entire film,
wow.
just because things went wrong.
Yeah.
With the camera didn't record. There was a problem with the sound,
Hmm.
and I was using resources such as natural light. So the sun,
Yeah.
that sometimes there'll be reflections. I wasn't working in a very like studio controlled environment, and I was working with very limited budget. So yeah, it was exhausting, and then acting on top of that, because no matter how great your lighting is, no matter how amazing you look, everybody's going to see your face and
Hmm.
look into your eyes. If
Yeah.
your performance is not convincing, I could have written the best script in the world, but the characters aren't believable.
Hmm.
You're not connecting with them, and that comes with authentic performances. So I had to work on my acting. I did do some research, but the advantage I had was I used to act in college and school, so I kind of
Hmm.
built upon those skills. And yeah, it's just a trial and error. I was grateful that I had Ahmed with me, so if I did do test shoots, I'd sort of run through
Yeah.
it with them.
He's
And
great.
yeah, so it was great having his support. Um, It was just an experience on its own, because watching yourself back on camera
Hmm.
was the most frightening thing for me. And then for me to judge if that performance serves the character is even difficult, because I see myself.
Yeah, cool.
So it's hard for me to sort of, you know,
Hmm.
look at it from just the character's point of view. Even then, now when I'm speaking to my editor, I'm like, "Do you think you should cut that bit out? Do you think I look too sketchy?" Like, no, you look fine. Yeah, it's acting is a very difficult job, and what I've learned about acting is not so much about what goes on your face; it's more about what goes inside you. So now,
Hmm.
learning this uh, from this experience, or the approach I have with my actors, I sort of go into a rehearsal room and said, "Look, I don't care what's going on your face. Do not act in front of a mirror or practice. I want to know what's going inside you.
Hmm.
Connect to the voices of the characters voices in their head. What are they thinking? Usually, as human beings, we have voices in the head, and we think about things, and we talk about our emotions internally. This is what I want you to do as an actor for me. And once you've done that, right, the expressions will just kind of come spontaneously. And that's the approach that I am going to take from now on. Rather being a very internal process, what it happens within you as that character. And then I'll address them on set as that character. And I won't ever address them by their name. The only time I'll probably address them by their name is if there's a safety
Interesting.
concern.
I think that was such a huge learning experience for you, and I think it will really help you going forward with your next projects. And that's sort of what I want to come on to talking about next. I want to talk about your feature film that you're working on, Amara. So I think one thing my listeners would be very interested in hearing about is sort of your casting process, how you go about that. Because personally, we met because you were auditioning me for a part. I submitted a self tape, and then we sort of had one of these similar sort of video chats. Can you talk a little bit about what it is you usually notice first in an actor? What is a good audition to you? And how do you go about finding your actors?
So for myself and most people in the industry that I know, they have a portfolio approach. So before we audition, we like to see what the actor has done, what experience they have. And it could just be any sort of experience. We want to try and look at their work and see if they fit the character description. So before the audition, we'd like to do a little bit of search on them, just see what they're about, where they're from, and also think about the logistics. Because if it's a local project and we have a target of sort of having 50% local cast on screen, then there's also that we have to take into consideration. How old they might be, what's their screen age. So all these sort of demographics play into part. And if you don't see a portfolio, if you don't see any stills, we don't know what to expect on the day of the audition. It's hard for us to shortlist them. So that's the first thing. And then we just want more than, I think, a great actor. I know that sounds really ridiculous, but we want nice people on our team. We want people who are genuine, integral, who are passionate, because most directors are confident that they can get good performances out of people, and I've worked with non-actors. But it's difficult to teach somebody to stay motivated and committed. So that's something that I'd look for. I love recommendations. That just puts my mind at rest, because we've all had disaster stories of working on projects, and we've got completely different way of working, and we're completely on a different path. So I think for an actor, you need to show commitment and dedication as well as talent. You need to assure the director or the producer or the casting director that's auditioning you that you're quite devoted to acting, and this is something that you want to do, and you're serious about acting. You're not somebody who's going to drop out. And also that, be very confident, believe in yourself that you are the right person for this job, and hence why you're applying. More than acting, tell them what else can you bring to the role. If there's any experience, say, I can drive, I really wouldn't need a fancy car. And there's me as a producer thinking, wow, right, yeah, that's fine, come on board. That's lovely to hear. But what else can you do to support, especially if you're going for a independent production? Costs and budgets are a big thing, and the easier you can make somebody's life. And if you're going for, say, a bigger production, say, I am actually so flexible. If you need me to do extra rehearsals, not a problem. Anything like that you can offer will just kind of add a little bit, an extra tick next to your name. And then the role than the audition itself. When you're acting, do a little bit of research about the character, understand the character, what they're like, what might their hobbies or interests be, and dig deeper down if you can, and if you have that information, and don't be afraid to ask questions. By the way, I wanted to understand if this character is more like so and so in that film, or more so like in, just so you have a bit of a reference, and then you can, you know, start to play it more authentically. So these are some of the tips, but a portfolio approach is something that I just cannot ignore, because at times I might be working with other producers or another director. I might not be directing the project myself, so I need to prove to them that you or somebody else that I've taken on board are the right people, and also some of the other cast members who might be working with you.
Hmm.
And I work with the big names, and a lot of times when you sign big names, you'll be like, "Well, who's playing opposite me?" And you're like, "Yeah, I've got a very fantastic actress. She's this. She's amazing. Look at her audition. Just look at her." You also have to sell that person to somebody else. So yeah, there's quite a lot of factors that come into play. But the best tip I can give you is make sure you have a very impressive portfolio, you look legit on paper, and you have
Hmm.
a website if possible. Build your social media. There's so much you can do nowadays. Build your digital literacy, and that's going to take you a long way.
Yeah, and I'm really, really happy that you actually brought up that being a nice person is such a big part of casting, because I've said this before on my podcast. So, you know, my listeners and viewers, you've got proof. A filmmaker herself has said it as well. A lot of the time, directors, they've seen your self tapes, they know you can act. And if they want to see you in the room for an audition, quite often they're trying to decide who is the person who's the nicest to work with, who will get the job done, who's going to turn up on time every single day, and who is easy to direct. Because you know, to be directed is a skill that you need to learn, to take in what it is they're asking, and try and deliver it, you know, the way that you think they want you to do it. So yeah, I think it was really important that you mentioned, as a filmmaker, you yourself also are really interested in what's behind this person, not just their talent.
Absolutely. And you're going to probably, if it's a feature script, probably spend months with them, like
Mhm.
rehearsing. They're gonna be your colleagues,
Yeah.
and if you hate the way they speak or
Very
something
true.
annoying about them, I mean,
Yeah.
I know that sounds silly, but just think of it that way. If you absolutely hate something about them, um, it's probably a very harsh word, but I mean, you have to be likable.
Yes.
You have to be a likable person. You have to be easy to work with.
Hmm.
Um, and you know that perception about big stars being very egoistic, and this image that we might have in our head. You
Yeah.
know, the more that we ask, the more demanding we are, the more kind of um, self-centered we might be. The more people see. No, nobody takes you seriously.
Hmm.
It doesn't work like that in the industry. Well, at least not now. I don't know if it used to work like that, but I think there'll be a point people will give up on you, no matter how great you are as an actor or whatever. If you're not a likable person, you've annoyed a lot of people on set, you've cost the production money, you're
Yeah.
probably not going to be hired again. And I've had actors where they are absolutely amazing, but I just think they're very annoying people, and I'll think twice about working with them again.
Hmm.
But most of my actors were absolutely great. I've just happened to work on other people's productions,
Hmm.
and I've also taken that on board. And yeah, so usually big actors I feel are the nicest, and I think that's probably how they got there.
Yeah.
Which it comes to a surprise, because you kind of go approach them and you think, oh my god, they're gonna
Hmm.
say something really mean to me. They're gonna ask me to go away, but they're so polite, and they'll greet you, and they'll have a conversation. They'll be so down to earth,
Yeah.
and they'll be probably the most hardworking on
Mm.
the set as well.
Oh, very, very true. Thank you so much for all of your advice today, Suman. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you have too.
Yes, it was really nice for you to invite me. Great
Oh,
experience.
Oh no, thank you for coming on. So before we wrap this up, do you have any final bits of advice that you would like to share to our creatives listening?
I think one advice I would like to share is don't let these lockdown um, sort of put a halt to your creativity or your ambition. There are ways where you can still put yourself out there as an actor. Use social media as a platform. Look at what Ariya is doing. Just take that as an example. And there's just so many things you can do. And one thing I'd highly recommend actors doing is writing.
Hmm.
Please do get into writing, and you'll learn so much about character profiles. You'll learn about the three act structure that we follow in scripts and how we, as directors, what approach we have. So writing is a great way to start. Um, because as an actor, you tend to focus on one moment. As directors or as producers or filmmakers, we have to look at so many other things. But it all starts with writing, and if you've got your foot there with writing, I do think it will help with your performances. You will be more wary of all the other factors that come into play and all the other things that you'll have to take into account. Acting is just not about one person or one character. It's never like that in real life. It's never just about one thing.
Hmm.
So the more diversify your skills are, the better the chances of you succeeding in the industry.
Ah, some great advice there. Thank you so much for that. Before we actually finally wrap this up, can you quickly share where our viewers and listeners might find you and maybe also your production company, your social media links?
So my name's quite unique, and usually you'll have a really good chance of finding me by just Googling me on the internet. I post all the updates on my official Twitter account, which is SUMAN HANIF 3, and the production company is Beyond Productions, and I believe it's beyondproductions.info. So if you go on there, you can
Mhm.
see my previous work, you can see the upcoming films. And there's a Facebook as well, which is Beyond Productions UK. So you should be able to easily find that on the search engine. And I have a LinkedIn as well if anybody wants to connect.
Perfect. Well, I will also link all of Suman's details below this podcast. So that is it for today. I really, really hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I've enjoyed being a part of it. Thank you again, Suman, for joining me. You have been an absolute joy to speak to. And that is it for today. Thank you again for tuning in, and please tune in next time to hear me speak with my next guest. Thank you and goodbye.